Ladies and gentlemen, the truth that Pakistan sympathizers have been trying to suppress for years together is finally out, and it's come from the horse's mouth. JKLF chief Yasin Malik is a Pakistan stooge and he sponsored terror activities in Jammu and Kashmir. I'm not saying that. Yasin Malik himself has confessed to a Delhi court today. He pleaded guilty to all the charges, including those under the stringent UAPA case before a Delhi court today, in a case related to terrorism and secessionist activities in the Kashmir Valley in 2017. He is the same man who killed 4 Indian Air Force personnel in the valley. The same terrorist who led the genocide of Kashmiri Pandits in the 1990s. Even confessed to his crimes but was not even charge-sheeted in these crimes. Why? Why was that? Some would suggest it was the patronage that he enjoyed by successive governments who used him in Jammu and Kashmir. But also at the center, he enjoyed the same patronage. In 2006, Yasin Malik was legitimized in a 1-hour-long meeting with the then Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, the self-confessed killer of Kashmiri Pandits, posing with the leader of the biggest democracy in the world, was a grotesque insult to the thousands of families who were living with the horror of the genocide. Now, as Yasin Malik confesses to his crimes, the legitimate question on the news hour is just this: killer set to face the law, are the patrons next? That's the question, and that's the debate. Yasin pleads guilty. That's the hashtag and the debate coming up on the other side.
You're watching the News Hour at 9, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
And joining me on the debate, Sanju Verma, national spokesperson of the BJP, Sushant Sareen, strategic affairs expert, Sushil Pandit, activist, Majid Haidari, political analyst, Sanam Shah, political analyst. Sushil Pandit, this was waiting to happen. It's taken a long time, but 3 decades later at least, finally Yasin Malik confesses. And what does this mean if when he confesses guilty? And let me tell you the acts under which he's confessed his guilt. Section 16 of the UAPA Act, which is the terrorist charge. Section 17, raising funds for terrorist activities. Also 18, Section 18, conspiracy to commit terrorist act, and 20, being member of a terrorist gang or organization. All of these under the UAPA, and Sections 120B, criminal conspiracy, and 124A, sedition of the Indian Penal Code. Took long, but where does this leave those who supported Yasin Malik, gave him a platform, hugged him, made him the centerpiece of any peace negotiations in Jammu and Kashmir? Where should they hang their head in shame tonight, Sushil Pandit?
Navika, it's not just the shame. There were those who actually shielded him, who came in the way of law taking its course on his crimes. They were high and mighty, and some of these headed our spy agencies. They held high political office. While his case was an open and shut case, and evidence was so clear and stark that even he could not have disputed it, so I'm not surprised that he's pleaded guilty, because I smell a rat here. I think by pleading guilty, he's trying to mitigate the bestiality of his crimes, which could have fetched him even bigger sentence. And since you listed all the sections under which he was charged, none of these sections include murder. None of these sections include massacres. None of these sections include abduction, rape, and brutalization of women, which he is guilty of, and couldn't have escaped death sentence, capital punishment under those charges. In case this is a legal stratagem to escape the news, then I am worried, because he has yet not been charged with the heinous crimes he committed of committing a genocide.
Well,
That charge.
absolutely well said. Absolutely well said, Sushil Pandit, because this is only about disturbing the peace in Jammu and Kashmir in 2017. What happens for his actions in the 1990s? And Majid Hydari, I want to ask you, would you still support Yasin Malik? Would you still say कि बेचारा कश्मीरी है, बेचारा यहाँ का है, बेचारा
मुसलमान है? नहीं, माजिद हैदरी's defense is मुसलमान को मार रहे हो.
Well, Navika Sahiba, in a country where the iconic and illustrious Mughal emperors are being dragged to the court of law, what better can be expected for someone already accused of terror? In a country where innocent lawmaker Nawab Malik is being compared with D Company and Dawood Ibrahim, what better can be expected for someone accused of terror?
Oh.
Yasin Malik is a gone case. Again, because when we look at the situation in totality, everybody has lost hope. When you drag Mughal emperors to the court of law, when you drag Nawab Malik to the court of law, and you forget the terror done by the Gaurakshak, I mean, there is also an evidence of how Pehlu Khan was killed, how Tabrez Ansari was killed, how Mohammad Ikhlaq was killed.
Majid Hydari, please do not beat around the bush. I'm asking you about a terror charge. I'm asking you about Yasin Malik,
no,
who's accused of killing 4 Indian Air Force officials, and Kashmir Files just depicted that. And today, this pleading guilty right after 2 months after that film. I want to ask
Kashmir
you,
Files truth comes
out in strange ways. Do you think you should be hanging your head in shame for supporting people like Yasin Malik, Majid Hydari?
No, I am feeling a victim. And victimhood of Muslims is a common common identity now. We are into victimhood.
Yasin Malik
no, I am not talking. See, I said Yasin Malik is a gone case. But what about
Yasin
Nawab Malik?
victim I'm feeling like a victim. Sushant Sari, even today, people like Majid Hydari will say Yasin Malik is a victim. Talk about our Kashmiri Pandit brothers and sisters who were killed, who were massacred. उसका हिसाब किताब नहीं है, पर यासिन मलिक victim है. सुशांत सरी.
You know, Navika, what happens is when lawyers have no facts on their side, what they try and do is derail the case by bringing in extraneous matters. So, for example, my friend Majid Hydari is bringing in this case of Nawab Malik as though he can stand up and vouch for the character of Mr. Nawab Malik. Serious charge against Mr. Nawab Malik, and there are reasons, including documentary evidence, to suggest that he was involved in some kind of hanky-panky, or at least there are allegations, and finally it'll go into a court of law. Number one. Number two, but let's return to this whole Yasin Malik case. I am one with my friend Sushil Pandit when he says he smells a rat, but I don't think it is as much of a legal stratagem, because under the charges under which he has been booked by pleading guilty, there will be a very stiff sentence awaiting him, and probably he'll spend the rest of his life in jail. So I don't think it is so much of a legal stratagem as I think it's a... And just like Majid Hydari is right now pleading in front of a national television channel that he is a victim, it will be that same victim card which will be played out. And just wait, you've just broken this news, right? Wait a couple of days, wait and see how the usual suspects come up out of the woodwork and then carry a campaign of the sorts ke Afzal hum sharminda hai, tere qatil zinda hai. We've seen that also.
Forget Afzal. Let's talk
about the Indian Parliament. You talk about him.
No, Yaqub Memon. Yaqub Memon. When they went,
exactly. He was the other guy who was coming.
Court ke hai, बेचारा victim है, मुसलमान है.
Exactly. So so I think that. So Navika, just wait and see. Just wait for the next couple of days. You will see that whole lobby coming out and pleading this is a miscarriage of justice, that this was under intimidation, that this poor innocent Gandhian with a gun and whatever other ridiculous
what about Samir Wankhede, sir?
that he is being victimized by this particular government, this particular state machinery. So I think that is what is going to be the political power play. So this thing is not going to go into...
Please do not mock the pain of those who have suffered at the hands of Yasin.
Navika, what I can't understand...
Majid Haidari.
Navika, what I can't understand is that when Majid Haidari had his chance, we all kept quiet and we listened to whatever he wanted to say. Now when somebody else talks, he has this thing that he must interfere. He must kind of, filibuster the other person. He must stop them from talking. He must interfere to derail a debate. He had his chance. He said what he had to say. I am saying something. If he has a problem, he should tell you and you should give him a chance to rebut my argument. But if he just wants to bring up all sorts of random cases, then I think I am as much entitled to bring many other random cases and throw at his face and ask him and indulge in the same whataboutery. I can do the same. We are talking about...
No whataboutery, not on the
news, not on the why doesn't he answer against, why doesn't he talk about the allegations and the confession?
Nawab Malik, he should go to the courts in Mumbai. The courts haven't given him bail, sir, so far. So the matter is with the courts. Let the courts decide. There can be agencies which have made charges against him. The courts have thought that those charges do not allow him to get bail so soon. He's still in jail, Mr. Majid Haidari. थोड़े दो आंसू उनके लिए भी बहा लीजिए और जिनके लिए आपने बहाना है, क्योंकि
नाविका साहिबा, मैं तो मुगलों के लिए आज आंसू बहा रहा हूं।
वहां
मैं तो मुगलिया सल्तनत के लिए आंसू बहा रहा हूं।
सूख जाते हैं। मैं आपको बता दूं, सूखे हुए आंसू भी कई बार जहर बन जाते हैं। लेकिन सनम शाह, I want to ask you this question. May I read out to you what Mr. PC Chako, remember him, Congress leader, he had to say then in 2019. PC Chako of the Congress said, even though we do not support Yasin Malik's ideologies or actions, the courage he has shown is something which should be appreciated because New Delhi cannot threaten anybody. India is a democracy. Tonight, Sanam Shah, what will you say?
मैं बताना चाहता हूं कि टाइम्स नो ट्वीट ऑन सनम शाह अगेंस्ट हुर्रियत एंड आरएसएस। आपके टाइम्स नो ने ट्वीट किया था कि सनम शाह चाहता है कि हुर्रियत कश्मीर में बैन होनी चाहिए, और आपने स्टार्टिंग में जब कहा कि डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह जी के साथ यासीन मलिक हाथ मिला रहे थे, यासीन मलिक साहब ने डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह जी के साथ हाथ मिलाया था, तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने मसूद अजहर को बाइज्जत जाकर पाकिस्तान में छोड़ा था, और देश के प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी बिरयानी खाने के लिए पाकिस्तान गए थे। अब मैडम बीच में मुझे इंटरप्ट नहीं करेंगे प्लीज। मैंने आप लोगों को सुना, मेरे अब आप मुझे भी सुनेंगे। मैडम, मैं जम्मू कश्मीर का नौजवान हूं, मैं जम्मू कश्मीर का युवा हूं, बट हमने आज देश को बचाना है, हमने देश को बचाना है। देखिए, सुने मेरी बात, 1987 में यासीन मलिक ने कंटेस्ट किया, यासीन मलिक के अगेंस्ट हूं, सनम शाह हुर्रियत के अगेंस्ट है। मैं चाहता हूं हुर्रियत बैन होनी चाहिए जम्मू कश्मीर के अंदर, हिंदुस्तान के अंदर आरएसएस बैन होनी चाहिए। बट मैडम, आप कह रही हो कि यासीन मलिक ने एक्सेप्ट किया है, कि आप कह रही हो कि यासीन मैडम प्लीज डोंट इंटरप्ट मी, मैडम डोंट इंटरप्ट मी प्लीज। मेरी आपने कहा कि यासीन मलिक ने एक्सेप्ट किया है, मैडम मैं आपको रिलाइज करवाना चाहता हूं, मैडम प्लीज डोंट मैडम प्लीज, मैडम आप मुझे इंटरप्ट नहीं करें, मैडम आप मुझे इंटरप्ट नहीं करें प्लीज, जस्ट लिसन टू मी, आई एम टेलिंग यू
यासीन मलिक टेररिस्ट है, बस इतना कह दीजिए।
जी क्या कहूंगा मैडम, ना बोलें आप।
No, he's had his say, Navika. He's indulged.
यासीन मलिक टेररिस्ट है, जो इतनी देर से, इतने सालों से, इतने दशकों से कहा जा रहा था, आज यासीन मलिक खुद कबूल कर रहे हैं। आज
मैडम कहा उन्होंने कबूल किया, जरा मुझे वो दिखाएं, जरा कोई एक स्टेटमेंट मुझे बताएं आप, एक जरा मुझे कोई वीडियो प्रोग्राम बताएं आप। वो यासीन मलिक का कहां पे है? अरे उसकी बीवी को नहीं पता वो इस टाइम कहां पे है, उसके घर वालों को नहीं पता वो कहां पे है।
बैन हो जाए, लेकिन यकीन नहीं आ रहा कि यासीन मलिक ने कभी ऐसा कहा होगा। अब आप जवाब दीजिए इनका।
मैडम, मुझे बात नहीं समझ आती है,
कर रही हूँ
मैडम सुने, मैडम मेरी बात सुने देना, आपको स्टैमिना नहीं होता हमारी बात सुनने का मैडम, आपके पास जरूरत नहीं है हमारी सच्चाई सुनने की मैडम।
थैंक यू नाविका जी। Thank you. You know, Navika ji, with no offense to Sushil Pandit, I agree with a lot of the points that he's made. But I don't think, there's any room now for a legal stratagem to be deployed by Yasin Malik or his, benefactors and patrons. Because while the punishment under Section 16, 17, 18 and 20 of the UAPA may not be very stringent, don't forget that he's also being tried under Section 120B for criminal conspiracy. Not heard the last on the sedition debate under Section 124A. He has, in BBC Hard Talk, decades back, admitted to killing Justice Neelkant Ganju. And I think the special NIA court has framed rock-solid charges against him. For everybody who thought that nothing will come out of Yasin Malik being behind bars, ye to jald hi nikal jayega. You keep... Today is the time when instead of showering brickbats, you can give bouquets and say that Amit Shah and the Union Home Ministry and the Narendra Modi government has done a phenomenal job. And let me tell you that the court will decide on the quantum of punishment from the 19th of normal charges are being framed against Aka Bikta Karate.
But I understand, Sushil Pandit, where you come from. You are still raising the issue of what happened in the 1990s. And I completely understand where you're coming from. Because these are charges of criminal conspiracy, these are charges of sedition against the government, disturbing peace, terrorists, etc., etc. But the pain of killing Kashmiri Pandits, but the pain of killing four IAF officers and a judge. Sushil Pandit,
disconnect ho gaya.
Yes, Sushil Pandit.
Listen, while I tend to agree most often with Sushant Sareen, my dear friend, in pleading guilty, very often you try and mitigate the extent of crimes you've committed in the eyes of judge, and also try and come across as someone who's reasonable. And I must not forget to remind you that our courts these days are fond of quoting sinners have a future kind of, statements, and then take away capital punishment and, give chances to heinous criminals, beasts in our society, in the garb of holding some Queensberry's laws of administering justice. This man doesn't deserve even an iota of mercy. In fact, he has no future. The shortest future he has, the better for this society and this country. And his pleading guilty should not anyway mitigate the degree of crimes that he's committed. He's a genocider. He's soaked in our blood.
Absolutely. From top to bottom. And his statement actually taking virtual credit for killing people. This is the man who the Congress hobnobbed with. This is the man who came to the Prime Minister's residence, Dr. Manmohan Singh's residence, way back in 2006. And this is the man who dictated that there should be a working group that should work on how to rehabilitate and bring in all those who actually were his followers. Yasin Malik, terrorist, accepted and pleaded guilty before a court in Delhi. Will justice finally be done? What about those killings of Kashmiri Pandits in the 1990s? Will we have to wait longer for that justice to be delivered? That's the question that still remains in the minds of many and in the hearts of many. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me on the News Hour. Good night, take care, be safe, and don't go anywhere because News Hour agenda coming up next. Good night.